So today I really want to tell you guys about this exciting app that I found. It's called Tiki, and it allows you to take back control of your data. So listen to this. Did you know that companies made $382 billion from your data last year alone? Well, this app called Tiki, it allows you to choose what data you share with companies and how you monetize it. You just link your accounts to the app and then you get a payout. Tiki is completely free to use and is available worldwide, so you can start earning from anywhere. Tiki just launched and they have limited spots available for people to use the app right now. So make sure that you sign up at www.mytiki.com/financially free. Now, once you sign up, you'll be sent a link to download the app and then you start using it. And they're growing super fast and we'll be having weekly releases and adding new features. They're doing so as we speak. More than 30,000 people have signed up already, so make sure that you join early. The link is going to be in the podcast description as well as the show notes. Let's take a moment to thank this episode's sponsor, Podcorn. Now, as you all know, I am a huge advocate for pursuing your passions and creating multiple streams of income. Well, this podcast is my passion, and by generating income through the show, I'm able to continue to support the show and create more content to share with all of you. Now, Podcorn is a dedicated platform that connects podcasters to amazing podcast sponsorship opportunities like topical discussions, giveaways, interviews, or host-read ads just like this one. Now, with Podcorn, there's no middleman, which means that you get to retain complete control of your show and the brands that you choose to collaborate with. Podcorn also makes sure that you're protected and compensated for the work that you do. I have personally had the opportunity to review brands that are looking to collaborate on podcasts and handpick what brands I wanted to feature on my show based off of what I thought all of you guys might enjoy hearing. Now, having transparency, full control, and creative freedom is a value that Podcorn and I have in common, which is why I love using their platform. Click the link in my show notes to sign up with Podcorn and start browsing sponsorship opportunities today. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Financially Free Journey podcast, and I am your host, Courtney Dyer. Guys, remember when I promised you I had some upcoming guests that were going to be amazing? They were going to blow your mind. Today is another one of those episodes, and I am so excited to be able to welcome Eric to the show. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well, Courtney. Thanks for having me.
Well, I, first of all, wanted to I was going to do this whole introduction, but I thought you would be better to introduce yourself and to be able to tell the listeners a little bit about what you've been up to, your background, and what you're doing now. So if you just want to tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'll try to keep it brief. So my name's Eric Su, and I've got a portfolio of marketing businesses. So we have software, ad agency, there's training, there's the events business tied to it. And I also invest in a lot of MarTech SaaS companies because my background's in SaaS. And we have a podcast called Leveling Up, another podcast called Marketing School, who I do with another marketer named Neil Patel, love him or hate him. And also I have a book, which those of you that can see the video right now, the book next to me is called Leveling Up. And I do very much feel like that's going to be the thing that I'm working on for the rest of my life.
So you're a serial entrepreneur is what is the vibe that I'm getting from you, Eric. You have so many different hats that you wear, and I think expertise that you can share with the listeners. And one of the things that I was reading, guys, about Eric before we started recording was his major success and ability to take a business from zero to hero. And there was a couple, Treehouse was one of them. And I really wanted to dig into that, Eric, and really, what was your process to take a business that was on its last leg and to be able to flip it around, turn it around, and have it become hugely successful? What was your process?
Yeah. So thank you for that. So Treehouse still is, it's an online education company. And, we had a great vision at the time. We had a great team. And what we were really lacking was marketing. So we basically had 5 months of cash left in the bank. And I had been promoted to lead the marketing team. I was only a month into the job and I was 26 years old. This is my first time being a manager. And the CEO pulled me aside and said, hey, if you don't hit numbers this month, we're going to have to let you go. So, at that moment, I could have either been like, what the F, like, dude, A, I'm 26 years old. Cut me some slack here. B, I've only been here for a month. But I actually I was very excited by that. So by that moment, I was like, okay, I'm going to like cry about it or crumble, but I was like, okay, let's do it. So long story short, I have a gambling background. So I basically went all in with YouTube ads on I bet the entire company on YouTube ads. You can say it's a bet. I think it was a calculated risk, and fortunately, it worked out. We were originally acquiring about 300 new students a month, and it jumped up to about 1,500, and then 3,500, then 6,500.
Wow.
And then we were able to then raise our Series B. But we had like a marquee list of Silicon Valley investors, but thankfully that worked out.
So you were given this huge task, 26 years old, the CEO, guys, imagine that. The CEO of your company pulls you in and says, hey, if you don't hit the numbers, you're out, right? At 20,
it's more than that too, Courtney. I mean, he was also saying like there's 80 people's families riding on your shoulders, right? So no pressure at all. Yeah.
No. Everybody's livelihood. And was this during the Christmas season? I mean, let's add on another layer here.
Yeah, I mean, actually it was basically around November, late November. Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh. So this company is really, there's a lot riding on you being able to dig into the marketing. And as you said, you made a calculated bet with YouTube ads, which a lot would say uneducated people that don't know a lot about YouTube ads may say that that's gambling, but it sounds like it was a very calculated risk that you were willing to take because you knew going all in would lead to success. And so maybe you could walk the listeners through how you analyzed that data and how you knew that that was a good choice. And like you said, 80 plus families were riding on you being right.
One thing is the guy, my predecessor before. So after I got promoted, he wasn't happy and he quit. And I was looking at his ad campaign. So in Google Ads, so Google owns YouTube, and I was looking at our ad account, and for whatever reason, it seemed like we had some traction in this one ad campaign. I dug a little deeper, and I was like, okay, it was a YouTube campaign, and it seemed like it was getting better and better over time. But there's some semblance of traction, and that's kind of like anything with business, life, or trying to create an audience. You just want to have some semblance of traction. You want to let it snowball over time. So I was like, I don't know why we stopped this, but if everything's riding on my shoulders and I have to hit numbers this month, this is going to be it, because it makes a lot of sense too, because the way we taught people coding and web design was all video based, and a lot of people are going to YouTube to learn this stuff. So the attention was underpriced. The attention was there hanging out, and we already had some traction. So, and we have some money to deploy. So, I got to do it. Otherwise there's going to be no choice. And thankfully that worked out.
Well, it sounds like really understanding the business, right? I mean, you knew exactly what type of traction you were going to receive. And so my question is for the listeners, there's a lot of people in this gray area trying to transition from a 9-to-5 job to being a sole entrepreneur. And it's really hard to cross over that gray zone, right? Like, how do I do that? So what advice do you have for someone who's trying to go all into a business, but not necessarily sure how to make that transition?
Yeah, I think I'll share some stories around this, and so you can take my path, because I basically as much of a gambler that I was back in the day, I didn't want to take risk. Like all of the the things I have to do, the paperwork around setting up a business, it was just a pain in the butt. I didn't want to deal with that. And so Treehouse worked out. I mean, I'm not going to take all the credit. We had a great team, a great product. I'm always a big proponent of someone working a full-time job and then starting a side hustle. And, the side hustle that you can do, it can be a drop shipping thing, which I think is difficult. But I think what's not as difficult is doing consulting or starting an agency on the side. And once that gets going, it's a great cash flow business. You can hire other people, and then you can take those cash flows and go reinvest in other areas. Whether it's you want to do real estate, that's fine. You want to do stocks, that's fine. You want to invest, buy other businesses, that's fine too. That's always been my thesis. And so, I actually got fired from my previous job before Treehouse. I got fired because I was trying to start a side hustle, and it was an unrelated business. It was a publishing company called Break Media, and they found out, and because one of the leads reached out to the front desk, and then the COO fired me the next day, and that actually motivated me quite a bit. And I was actually very excited when I got fired. So I think that's also a key thing too. Can you rewire your mind in situations where you should be panicking? But both times when something bad happened, I was like, oh, this is great. So I think to de-risk yourself, again, to make it simple, the short answer to your question is work on someone else's dime, start that side hustle. And once it gets going, you can level up to the next thing.
Absolutely. It doesn't mean that you're not committed to your passion or your side hustle, but if you're
Yeah.
making a logical, smart transition, like you said, drop shipping, for example, or consulting, it's not a lot of overhead. So how can you then take that transition phase or period and project and then go to the next level, like leveling up, right?
Yeah.
So I
So
love that idea.
by the way, Courtney, I just remembering this right now because in Clubhouse, maybe a month or two ago, Guy Kawasaki came in the room. And the moment he came in, I remember this. When I was working at that one job, I was like, hey, Guy, I emailed him. I was like, hey, Guy, like, how can I make this work? How can I, start my side hustle while I'm working at this job? Right. Like how, and he's like, you mean you're not going to go all in on your current job, blah, blah, blah. And I always remembered that. And I told him that at the moment. He's like, well, good thing you didn't listen to me. So, just whatever advice you go out there and get, just make sure, I would just say, you want to apply it to your own situation. So, which is why I don't like advice too much. I like stories more.
Absolutely, because you can really take that story and the pieces that pertain to you, right?
Yep.
So everybody's a little different, their journey is different. Okay, so we were at Treehouse, we did amazing, we built a huge, strong marketing campaign, turned it around, right? The 80 families did not go, penniless during the holidays. Is I would say the moral of that story, right? You were able to do that. Now take us through to Single Grain. Talk a little bit about Single Grain.
Yeah. So Single Grain was, it's the ad agency that I owned. And, I was brought in because the founders saw that I had helped turn around Treehouse. They're like, oh, okay, now come help save this failing SEO agency. At the time, Google's algorithms had changed, which basically made their business model invalid overnight. The work they were doing didn't work anymore. So they brought me in, and I wasn't interested in the agency model because I came from tech, and I thought my poo-poo didn't stink, and I thought I was better than the agency model, to be frank, at that age. And I was like, do I really want to go into the agency world? Like, that's not that scalable. It's a pain in the butt. But then I reframed my mind, and I was like, well, if I can turn this crappy business around, I feel like I can do anything. And so I ended up coming in as the number 2 for the company. And about 6 months into the job, the 4 other partners, Neil was actually included in there as well. They decided that they wanted out. And I was 27 years old at the time. And I did my quote unquote, I'm air quoting. I did my first mergers and acquisitions deal, right? And it sounds all fancy. At
27.
Yeah. And like basically I negotiated a deal where I paid $1 for 10% of Neil's shares and another dollar for another partner's shares, 10%. And then the rest was seller finance through the company, meaning I would use the profits to pay for it. And I put in a contingency saying that if the company failed, I would owe nothing. And the way I looked at it, and so I think thinking in bets, right? We talked about YouTube. That was a calculated bet. This was a very big bet. And I was thinking that if it would work, it would be an asymmetric upside type of deal, meaning that my upside would be almost unlimited and my downside would be capped because I would owe nothing if the company failed. It would be an expensive MBA lesson, and that's worth it. I got to be a CEO. Look at me, right? And
absolutely.
Not a month. So I got to take over in the new year, and a year into it, I took it from bad to worse. And so I read this book called Let My People Go Surfing, which is written by the Patagonia co-founder. Great book, but I took the title too literally. So I was like, people don't want to be micromanaged. People don't want. So I stopped showing up to the office, and it's just things were getting bad, right? People will come into the office, watch Family Guy, wear flip-flops, eat chips and all that. I don't have problems with people wearing flip-flops, but I think when people aren't working and then people are telling me about it, it was just a disaster. And at the end of the day, it was all my fault. And so my outside accounting firm called me a year into it and said, hey, it might be time to shut it down. I actually almost accepted a job offer. I was about to move to Dallas. It was about to be the end of it. And, from there, I'm happy to talk about how we turned it around, but that was basically the lowest point. So
let's take a moment to talk about this episode's sponsor, Smile Brilliant. Now, do you grind your teeth when you sleep? If so, you're among 40 million other Americans who also grind their teeth. And whether it's stress, anxiety, or an abnormal bite, chronic teeth grinding can lead to worn enamel, tooth decay, sleeplessness, and expensive dental procedures. The number 1 teeth grinding prevention recommended by dentists is the custom-fitted night guard, but it's costly, with an average dentist charging $200 to $300 per guard, and you're going to grind through several of those in a year. Using Smile Brilliant's Lab Direct process, you can get the same custom-fitted night guards, but for as little as $45 per guard. Also, Smile Brilliant has custom fitted teeth whitening trays, which is amazing, and the Carry Pro electric toothbrush. So make sure that you head over to www.smilebrilliant.com and use the code JOURNEY at checkout, and you're going to get 30% off. Once again, that's www.smilebrilliant.com and use the code JOURNEY at checkout for 30% off. I'll make sure to link the website down in the show notes and in the show description. Well, and it's always good when we're listening to a story. What was that lowest point and how did you dig yourself out of it? Because a lot of the listeners, they are trying to get themselves out of debt or out of a bad place with their small business. So yeah, talk to us about that journey upward now.
Yeah. So the journey upward, I was like, I accepted this job offer, right? So here's the thing. I realized that it would have been golden handcuffs for me because it was a 7-figure a year job offer. So it was great. And I was like, I can't do it. It's something doesn't feel right anymore. It doesn't make sense to go back levels. And so I was like, you know what? I got to give this a shot, and so, what we did was we slowly started to, refer the leads out. And thankfully, what happened as I was trying to save the company in the first years was I started to build the SEO up. We started creating more content. We started getting more links to the website. Without going too deep into it, our traffic started to grow. And I also had started my podcast a year before that called Leveling Up. And a year into it, I was only getting 9 downloads a day. So it was a complete failure, but I let that compound over time. Same thing with SEO traffic. And we started to get leads coming in, but we didn't have the people. So I was like, oh crap, what do we do? So I started to refer the leads out, and we basically worked with other agencies, and we would take 25 to 30% of the customer's lifetime sales. So that was pretty good. We were able to kind of sustain from there. And then we realized that these other agencies would not retain the customer as well. So we started taking contractors in. We had a little more cash flow, slowly started building up. And then the contractors did okay, but we needed to level up to the next step. It's like, okay, let's start bringing the full-timers in again. And then what really helped kick us back into gear was there's a concept in business. There's the visionary and an integrator. So for every 4 visionaries, there's really only 1 integrator. And the integrator can be an operations person, whatever you want to call them. Once we brought in the operations person, our sales quadrupled. And then from there, we just kept growing and growing and growing. And it's a very healthy 8-figure business now between all the things that we have going on. But it took longer than I thought it would. And if I were to go back in time, I probably wouldn't have taken over the agency. I probably would have just started something from scratch. But hey, no regrets.
Well, what a lesson to learn. I mean, to be able to take something over and to, as you said, you get to a really low point and to dig yourself out of it. How many lessons did you learn along the way? And growth happens in the uncomfortable zone, right? It doesn't happen when we're comfortable. And so really, who knows if you would be where you are today if you hadn't had those experiences. So my question is for the listeners that are in a situation similar where they're trying to grow a business, they're trying to chase their passion and their talents and have that collide to be a great source of income. What do you want them to take from your story?
Yeah, I think it's, to your point, you never really know until even working with my coach the other day, you never really know everything. I have this mishmash of stuff right now where everything's kind of coming together, right? And you just kind of don't know how it's going to turn out. I think it's just staying consistent and thinking long-term. I think at the first sign of pain, most people tend to give up. And that's why most people end up being most people. And so I think, look, the podcast, same thing, 9 downloads a day after the first year, 30 downloads a day after the second year. But now cumulatively right now, we're getting about 1.6 million downloads a month. Our traffic, when I first took over the ad agency, 4,000 visits a month, which is not bad. But now we're at about 350,000, which is a lot better. It's not the best, but it's great. So I just think things take a lot longer than we think they will. So thinking in decades, and that will totally flip kind of how your mind, kind of adjusted to, every scenario.
Well, and before starting a project, right, understanding, as you said, that it's going to take longer than a month or 6 months or a year or 2 years, right, to see results. And so before you dive into a business or a venture, are you in it for the long run? Are you thinking long term? And are you willing to stick it out? Because as you said, like 9 downloads a day after a year, a lot of people, they quit, right? Like 30% of all podcasts that are started continue after the first year. So that's a great example of people being able to push past the barrier and those down points. And that's something you can take to your business.
By the way, what I would say to that too, this is a little, it's a little crass, but I think those people that are looking at the downloads or the views too much, I would say stop being so egotistical, stop being so selfish. And I'm speaking to myself too, because, what had I only focused on the downloads or the views at that point, I think I would have gotten discouraged and given up. But I reframed and I was like, what am I learning from these people? And a lot of the lessons I was applying towards the business I was trying to save, and what types of relationships am I building right now? Some of my best friends have come from, the podcast. And in that vein, I was like, oh, this is actually time well spent. But if I was only focused on the views, I think it would have been like, okay, yeah, we're not hitting KPIs here. It's time to give up.
Right. No, that's such a great way. I heard someone say this once, and it's like, if you had 9 people come over into your living room, you'd have a full house, right? And you would be speaking to those. You're still speaking and reaching those customers. 9 is your example, but someone starting a business, it could be, 5, 10, 100, whatever, but don't compare it to what you think success looks like. Think about it in the moment and the success that you're having, because that's still a huge audience. It's still a large amount of people to be able to have their ear and have them listen to what you have to say. So again, don't be so egotistical. I love that. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your book, Leveling Up.
Yeah. So thanks for that. So my book, Leveling Up, a lot of people are like, why don't you just write a marketing book? It seems to make sense. But this whole leveling up thing it's a philosophy. So the subtitle is How to Master the Game of Life. I used to do esports gaming pretty hardcore from about age 8 to 22 years old. So that was really a good chunk of my life. And now it's very much accepted. It's inevitable now. And, a lot of the other countries, Europe or Asia, it's a top 3 sport. In America, we'll catch up soon. But I just look at life as a puzzle every single day. Marketing is great. There's a lot of puzzles you can solve. I think whether you want to think about, relationships, you want to think about doing a deal, buying a business, there's games within games to be played. And if you see life that way, it's a lot more fun. But no, I just leveling up is really about getting better, 1% better every single day. And it's about going out there, collecting power-ups, whether they're great habits, great mental models, and just thinking like an investor too, right? You look at the Warren Buffetts, the Charlie Mungers of the world. So it's really a consolidation of all the things I've learned so far, but very much every single day. Like when I'm waking up in the morning, I'm just trying to, if I'm working out and I'm meditating, all these things, I'm just powering up. And then when my day actually starts, I feel like I'm ahead of most people.
Well, and you know what what I loved about the book Leveling Up, because I had an opportunity to read some of it. And I love that you put it in terminology where it's super simple, because there's a lot of self-help books or books where we're talking about theories to become better in life, but they seem to be so complex that you get lost in it and it seems way over your head. And what I love about the way that you wrote your book is that it's simple, it's to the point, it's easy to understand, and it's a lot of storytelling. As you had mentioned, you like to use stories. And so guys, it's such a great book. I thought it was such an easy read. I mean, it was really easy to take in and understand what you were saying. So it was great. Where can the listeners find your book?
Yeah, so they can go to levelingup.com. There's a whole game to get that domain too. So that's easy enough.
Very easy. So levelingup.com. Where else can they find you? Do you have social media, another website?
Yeah, they can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Eric OSIU.
That is, guys, definitely go check out the book. I don't read a ton of books. I usually listen to them, but I took the time to read this one and it really stuck with me. And I think that you will enjoy it and you'll be glad that you took the time to go to levelingup.com, check out the book. Eric put a lot of thought into this, and why not take his life lessons to get a little bit ahead on your own journey? So Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. Any last piece of advice that you want to leave with the listeners?
Yeah, just again, think in decades.
Think long-term, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Thank you for listening in today, guys. If you're not already, follow us on Instagram. It's at Financially Free Journey, where I post daily tips and motivation to help you on your journey. Until next time.